I'm going to start this episode a little bit differently today, and I'm going to start it with a story because if you follow me on Instagram, you will know that Stevie recently took me on a surprise holiday to Croatia. It was the most beautiful place. I would absolutely go back there again. But the reason that we actually went to Croatia is because he's actually watched Game of Thrones, but I'd never watched it. So we decided to start the whole thing together. He bought a DVD player. We bought the whole box set. It's been a whole thing and it's been so lovely. And so much of the Game of Thrones was actually filmed out in Dubrovnik. And he just decided to book it, didn't tell me, turned up to the airport with the tickets. And it was probably one of my favorite holidays I've ever done with him. And it was just so special. So yeah, it was amazing. And we go on this holiday and one of the days, Stevie surprises me with a kayaking trip. And if you know me at all, you'll know that I love everything to do with water. Give me a paddle or a board or a surfboard or anything like that, and get me by the ocean and I am the happiest person alive. If I could live in a little shack out like right on the edge of a beach, I would be so happy. That is honestly, I dream about that sometimes. As long as I'm by the ocean, I am a happy girl. So I was absolutely buzzing about going kayaking. I couldn't wait. So we get in these kayaks and we start paddling out from Dubrovnik towards this little island just off the coast, and it's called Lokrum. It's absolutely, it's so pretty. It's like just this really thick green forest coming out of the sea. Really peaceful, no houses, no hotels, just nature. There is a small castle that had been built on there, but it's, no one lives on it. And our tour guide takes us from there all the way around the island, and we go on this big tour around the island, and he stops us right on the edge of the island as we get there. And he starts telling us this absolutely crazy story about the origin of this island and why it is apparently now cursed. He even said that, you can take tours there and you can go and visit the island, but if you were to take anything from the island, like a rock or a stone or a feather or anything like that, and you were to take it home with you, you're apparently going to be cursed for life. It was quite crazy. So we're all sat there. There's about 30 of us in these kayaks in the middle of the sea, right next to this island, all clamoring on, listening to this man tell us that hundreds and hundreds of years ago, there was this group of, they're called like Benedictine monks, I think, who lived on this island, and they were really peaceful. They'd been there for centuries, and they were completely forced off of this island by the government of the time because they wanted to sell this island. And the monks were completely devastated and they did not want to go. And on their very, very, very last night, before they were told that they had to leave forever, they walked around the whole island multiple times, chanting, hooded in their robes, like holding candles upside down and dripping the wax onto the grounds as they walked. And they cursed anyone who ever tried to own that island for themselves, which is crazy. And I'm listening to this thinking, what on earth is going on? This is absolutely crazy. And then he starts telling us what happened after. And this is where it gets absolutely wild, because every single person who bought that island after came to have a completely tragic end to their life. So the first buyer went bankrupt overnight. The next one bought it and then drowned. And then there was this Austrian archduke bought it. Apparently he fell in love with it, and shortly after was made the Emperor of Mexico. However, he was then executed by a firing squad, and his wife lost her mind and lived out the rest of her life in an asylum. So then after that, his nephew bought it, this prince who fell madly in love with a woman he wasn't supposed to be with, apparently. He was already married, so he was actually committing adultery, and the whole thing ended in absolute tragedy for both of them. And apparently they both ended in suicide, which is so wild. So the history of it is that no one has ever bought that island and survived or had a happy ending. And then finally, the last owning family, before it became a nature reserve, one of them was assassinated, I think, and his name was Franz Ferdinand. And his assassination is what sparked the First World War. And I'm honestly not even joking. This little tiny island just off the coast of Dubrovnik we were casually like kayaking around, literally was the reason that the First World War was created. So that was wild to me. I remember just like turning to Stevie and being like, what on earth? This is wild. But what really stuck in for me from the whole thing wasn't necessarily the tragedy or the curse of any of that. It was the story about the prince, because when the tour guide was telling us about him, the way he described it, this man had absolutely everything. He had wealth, he had power, he'd already had a wife who was apparently really lovely, and a throne who he was about to become a king. And he threw it all away for this one woman he wasn't meant to have. He wasn't meant to be with her. And not because she was more beautiful, maybe she was, or because she was more richer, but because she had this energy about her, I guess. And he couldn't ignore it. And as I was paddling back to the shore later that day, we'd done the whole trip, I couldn't stop thinking about it. Like, honestly, I was just like so drawn in by this story about the pull of women and the actual real magnetic pull that a woman can have over someone. And that has literally shaped the whole course of history over and over and over again. Kings, princes, presidents, like complete, like whole empires back like hundreds and hundreds of years ago changed direction because of certain women. Not because they pushed, because she pulled, because they actually have this magnetic pull. Something made these men change the course of their lives because they needed to be with this certain woman. Now, I'm not saying I agree with adultery in any way, shape or form, but it's that pull, that magnetic energy that certain women have. And that got me thinking about one of the most famous love stories in British history. This one fascinates me. And I remember when it got reenacted on The Crown. If anyone's watched The Crown, you'll know what I'm talking about. But when this story got reenacted on The Crown, I was obsessed with it. And it's connected to something so many of us are getting completely wrong when we sell. So back in 1936, there was a man called King Edward VIII. That was it, yeah, King Edward VIII. And he was the king of the United Kingdom. So this is a huge story, a massive story. And he'd just come to the throne. His dad had died, and he was technically the most powerful man in the country. Head of the Church of England, head of the entire British Empire. He was huge. But before he'd been given the throne, he'd actually already met a woman a few years before he became king. And her name was Wallis Simpson. So she was American, which was already a bit of quite a big scandal at the time, which is why Meghan Markle had all this big scandal. And she's another really good example as well. But on top of that, she'd actually been divorced once and was in the process of divorcing her second husband. So a twice divorced American woman, which for the royal family in the 1930s was basically the worst possible combination that they could imagine. And the entire British establishment, the government, the church, his own family, everyone was telling him, you absolutely cannot be with this woman. You cannot marry her. If you insist to marry her, you're going to have to give up the throne, because as the head of the Church of England, he wasn't allowed to marry a divorced woman whose ex was still alive. It just wasn't allowed back then. So he had this impossible choice in front of him: his crown, his throne, his country, or this woman, Wallis Simpson. And on the 11th of December in 1936, he went on radio live on the nation and abdicated the throne, gave it completely up. And in the speech he made that day, he said this line that has been quoted for nearly 100 years since. He said, "I have found it impossible to carry the heavy burden of responsibility and to discharge my duties as king. without the help and support of the woman that I love. The woman that I love, like a king gave up his throne, his crown, his country, his family. He lost everything because the pull of this woman that he had on him, that she had on him. And she definitely wasn't the most conventionally beautiful woman. If you look her up, she's definitely not what you would picture to be wow. But she, and she wasn't even that rich in her own right. Like she was just her. And there was something about her presence that this man could not walk away from, even for a crown. Like when you watch The Crown, you see it, actually. You see it. Like she is very, very elegant, and she's just very, very beautiful in her nature. And they ended up marrying the king that abdicated. They ended up marrying, and the next year, and they ended up staying together for 35 years until he died. And she was there for all of it. And that right there is what I want to talk to you about today. That pull, that force, the thing that history keeps showing us over and over again, that is this feminine energy. And I genuinely believe it's one of the most underused superpowers we have in business. It's so, so, so powerful. So welcome to The Art of Selling. My name is Chloe, and this show exists for one reason, really, to change the way that we as women sell. So if you're a woman who's ready to get dangerously good at selling without losing yourself in the process, you are absolutely in the right place. So today, we're going to be talking about the power of your feminine and why leaning into it when you sell isn't a weakness or something to hide. It's actually such an amazing edge, and it's your biggest edge. And whether you're selling to men, women, or a mix of both, this changes everything about how you show up and how you build a business. Now, I want to be completely clear about what I mean by feminine energy, because I know some women hear the phrase and they roll their eyes. I probably was one of those people a couple of years ago as well. They think it means weak, especially when I was in door-to-door selling. If anyone said, oh, you sell really feminine, I think I'd have actually got a bit angry, because I was always competing with men. And I was like, no, I'm so masculine. I'm the best salesperson. I'm better than them. And, they think that being feminine means that you're weak, or you're quiet is a really good one, or like letting people walk all over you, or even like wearing like feminine colors like pink and speaking really softly and being submissive. And that is not what it is at all, because feminine energy is this like magnetic pull. Feminine energy I always describe it as feminine energy is the pull and masculine energy is the push. And that's honestly the simplest way that I can explain it, because masculine says, come here, buy this, do this now, never miss out, act fast, those sorts of things. But then the feminine on the opposite side says, this is what I've got. This is the world I've built. Come in if it feels right for you, and people move towards it. They don't need to be forced to move towards the feminine. And it's this warmth, this presence, it's curiosity, it's actually listening to people instead of just waiting for your turn to talk. It's having this confidence that doesn't need to shout, because it already knows what it is. It's building real relationships instead of chasing. And the wild thing is, we've actually all felt this energy. Think about the women that are in your own life who just seem to have this like magnetism about them. I think I've talked about my friend before in this podcast as well. My friend who lives in LA. I was always baffled by her before I even got into any of this. I was always very, very wary, but always quite admirable about her life. She just used to say, this is what I'm destined to do. I am destined for this life, and she was so certain. She manifested everything. She used to journal about what her dream life would feel like, what it would be like, what it would, like, and as if she was already living it. She talked about her dream man as if he was already there. And lo and behold, she now lives in, she used to talk about how she was going to live in LA. And I used to be like, what? You live in England? What are you talking about? You're not going to live in LA. Anyway, she now lives in LA, has the most beautiful husband, has started a family, and she has an abundance of everything in her life. Now that, everyone is different, but that is what she wanted for her life, and she managed to manifest it. And she lives in this like feminine energy. She's so feminine. She's always been so feminine though. She's always lived in this sort of just like knowing that everything is working out for her, and that she's never had to really try and push for anything. The right things just come to her. And every single one of us has it in us. We do. We've just been trained to switch it off in professional spaces because we've been told that it's not serious enough. It's not powerful enough. Being too soft and too much, it doesn't work. It doesn't allow you to be successful. But I mean, I've got to tell you, from what I've learned, softness is not a weakness. Softness is what made a king give up a crown. And I'm not saying that you have to be the person that makes your partner give up things. Like, that's not what we're saying. What I'm saying is that you have the ability to tap into your feminine energy to get more of what you want. Not forcing, not making someone give something up, but get more of the things that you want and allow people to lean into that. So let's bring this back to, selling, because obviously, you might be sat there going, yeah, these are lovely stories, Chloe, but what on earth does this have to do with me learning how to sell? So whether you're learning to sell, or whether you're selling to men, or whether you're selling to women, people are genuinely exhausted. They are so tired of being sold at, and they're tired of the aggressive, DMs, like the pushy sales calls, all these funnels designed to trick them into saying yes. They feel really, really overwhelmed, and they're skeptical, and they've been sold to 1,000 times already this week. We're constantly being sold to. But when a woman shows up warm, curious, unbothered about whether the sale comes or not, actually listening to them, caring about whether they're a good fit, it's like this big exhale for the person on the other end. They can feel the difference straight away. It completely disarms them completely. And this works whether the person you're selling to is a man or a woman. If it's a woman, she recognizes, she's going to be able to recognize the energy because she probably operates in her feminine too, or at least in her personal life. It feels like coming home for her. It feels like a familiarity. But if it's a man, the feminine energy is often the thing his life is missing. He's been running masculine energy all day in his job, pushing, doing, deciding. And when you show up with this like soft, grounded, calm energy, it's really magnetic to him because it's the thing he's been craving without even knowing it. And there's this beautiful way of thinking about this sort of like feminine energy, because this analogy is, I always compare it to like feminine energy is the ocean, and we're going to tie it back to my favorite thing, which is being by the sea. So feminine energy is the ocean and masculine energy is the boat. And it's such a good way to hold it in your head. So the masculine gives things direction, structure. It leads us to the point. It leads us, it's steering us to where we need to go. And the feminine is where all the depth and aliveness and the pull comes from. A boat with no ocean is just a piece of wood on land. And remember that under the boat, if the current isn't working with the boat will not work in the right direction. It won't go in the right way. And so this is a lovely way to think of the masculine and feminine. The feminine is this ocean. It controls the currents. It controls the flow. It has this lovely way of being able to have this depth, this aliveness. And on top of that ocean is this boat that, yes, they can steer ahead. They have the direction, but without that flow, without that ease, without that soft tide, the boat won't go anywhere. Without the ocean at all, there's no boat. So when we try to sell from this pure masculine energy, we're all boat and no ocean, and it's all direction and structure and closing techniques and no actual life in it. And people can feel it. They might buy from you once, but they don't come back. There's no relationship there. There's no soul in it. And when you sell from feminine, they don't just buy from you, they stay, they tell their friends, they come back next year because they don't just want to buy a service. They feel a little bit more in love with you. They feel like they feel really connected to you, really connected to you. And this isn't just a one-off with Wallace Simpson, for instance. History is full of examples of women who moved from their feminine, not by shouting or by being like forcing their masculine, but by being magnetic. A really good example, like think about Marilyn Monroe. We talked about her in a few episodes back with her alter ego. She definitely was not the loudest in Hollywood or the loudest in the room. She wasn't the most educated, but her softness, her curiosity, the way she made every man she spoke to feel like the only person in the room, that's what turned her into the most famous woman on earth. Presidents fell for her, playwrights fell for her, baseball players fell for her, like all from her presence, not from this like pushing like masculine energy. She didn't have that. She oozed feminine. And another really good example, one of my favorites, is Princess Diana. There's a reason she's still called the people's princess to this day. You know, she was not a politician. She didn't fight her way in. She married someone who actually really, she should have become a nobody after that because, you know, she got divorced, which was technically, she should have been cast aside. But she became this unbelievable feminine archetype for just someone who, no matter what she goes through, she just has this beautiful energy. She was so magnetic and just feminine. Like when you think of Princess Diana, she was so soft spoken, but very assertive, and she knew what she wanted, and she magnetized everything she needed to her. She changed the whole conversation about how the royal family behaved. She moved a nation with her softness, like she actually did. And then when you look down the family line of the royal family, look at Meghan Markle. Prince Harry has literally moved completely away from the royal family. He now lives in America, has nothing to do with the royal family whatsoever, because he found love in someone he really should not have fallen in love with. Like technically, and like in the royal family, it was so against who he should have married. You know, she was married before it was just not who he should have been with. Yet he decided that no, I love her and I need to be with her. And she, whether you like Meghan Markle or not, I think she's incredible. And I think Meghan Markle is one of the most beautiful feminine people out there. She's so sure of herself. She knows what she wants and she's going to get it, but she behaves in such a feminine way. And it's so beautiful. Even Oprah, like Oprah's a really good person. She's built one of the biggest multi-million-dollar empires in history using the media, and by being genuinely interested in people, like by listening, by making the person on the sofa feel like the only human in the world for that 1 hour. And people open up to her in a way that she never opened up to in any of the, and you know, people would never open up to someone like that on an aggressive interview. You know, she's worth billions because of it. And she is very feminine. She's very, very feminine. And every one of these women moved something huge, and none of them did it by copying the masculine playbook. You know, they did it by leaning further into who they already were. So how do you actually start selling from your feminine? Because it's easy to say, you know, but it's harder to do when you've spent years in hustle mode. Take it from me, like I understand. I have lived in hustle mode for a very, 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 very long time. And I completely understand how it can completely destroy you and completely destroy your thought process around the feminine energy. I lived in this hustle culture. I worked a lot around men. I was just so in my masculine. And here's what actually worked for me and the women that I now coach. So first things first, slow down. Genuinely slow down. I don't mean you need to slow down the pace of your life or you need to slow things down completely so that things just don't, like, I like fast-paced things. I feed off of that energy. But when you get on a call, when you talk to a prospect or when you're selling something, when you send a message, when you write a piece of content, slow the whole thing down. Masculine energy is fast, urgent, now. It has to be done now. Whereas feminine energy takes its time. And when you slow down, everything changes. You know, your voice drops, your body relaxes. The person on the other end of the exchange can feel the way they can feel like they can breathe. So try recording yourself on a call and just notice how fast you're speaking. Because even when you're when you're asking your prospect questions, rather than worrying about what's next, the next question, listen to what they're saying and let the next question organically flow. And don't be scared to have that silence, because it's such a great way to think, for them to think and for you to think of what you want to ask next. So that's first. And then secondly, I think one of the most important ones is ask and don't tell. This is such a subtle shift, but it is massive, because masculine energy tells and feminine energy asks. So instead of jumping straight into your pitch, you ask them, what's going on for you at the moment? What are you actually looking for? What's not working right now? And let them tell you. And the more they tell you, the more they feel understood. And the more you listen, the more they feel like you get them. And the more they feel understood, the more they trust you. And the more they trust you, the more they buy from you. Because where do we buy from? We buy from trust. We don't buy anything if we don't trust it's going to work. And thirdly, get comfortable being still. This is such a hard one, and this is similar to number one, but more importantly, because we've been trained to always be doing, always be posting, always be pushing, but feminine energy is grounded and still. It is. It's the woman who is able to, doesn't need to post 10 times a day to be able to get their ideal client. That's just completely unrealistic. You're not going to be able to do that unless you have someone helping you or you have a content creator, which is going to cost money. But there's this presence. There's actual thought into everything that you do. Rather than posting 10 times a day, you post once a day, and it's thoughtful. It's impactful. It doesn't come from a place of panic. Try posting less this month and putting more of yourself into each and every piece of content that you make. And I promise you, watch what happens with your engagement. I don't know if you guys have seen that lady that has been doing this Yap challenge. I mean, it's insane. She's incredible at what she does. And I'm a sucker for a Yap. I love talking on Instagram. And I recently did a series where I did like 30 days before I turned 30. And I love talking on Instagram. I absolutely love it. And I think that was such a powerful movement. It created such intention with a lot of women. It was like, actually, you don't need to post 10 times a day. You could just post one piece of content of you talking authentically, and you will gain clients. You will gain traction. And fourth, honestly, I think this is definitely the most important one, because I think it makes the most sense, and it's the one that we do a lot more. We do a lot of, but it's stop apologizing for being feminine. Stop trying to make your business sound more corporate to be taken seriously. Stop trying to dress down your softness because you think it makes you look weak. That softness is your superpower. It's the thing that people in your industry, like that men in your industry can't compete with. It's the thing that makes you unforgettable. It's the thing that makes you, your feminine energy as a woman is what makes you so unique. It's so unforgettable because you're not less of a business owner because you're feminine. You're a business owner with an edge nobody else in your industry has. And that is the gem. That is the sweet spot. That is the thing that is going to set you apart from all of your competitors, whether they're feminine or masculine. It doesn't matter. It's about like putting yourself, you're a business owner with an edge nobody else in your industry has. So this week, I want you to just notice how much of the day you spend in your masculine, pushing, doing, grinding, and notice what happens when you drop into your feminine, even for just 10 minutes. When you do slow down, when you do get a bit curious, when you stop chasing and you start just being. Because, a king gave up his throne for a woman whose only superpower was being properly, unapologetically her. And your dream client will do the equivalent. They'll pick you, they'll pay you what you're worth. They'll come back again and again if you'll just let yourself lead with the bit of you that you've been told to hide. So this is what we do a lot of in The Art of Selling, my coaching program. If you do want more help and you want more support in learning how to sell or becoming dangerously good at selling and learning tips and how to really get powerful in your feminine whilst also making lots of money in sales, just message me the word feminine and I will send you a 10-minute video of exactly how we do that and how I can help you. So if you like this podcast, please like and share it and subscribe. It helps me so much and I'm so grateful for you being here, and I will see you all next week.